here in Fulmer, and I'm a past Washington, Northwest Regional, and National President. And it's my great honor today to be here with André Thomas, who is going to be our headline clinician at Summer Institute in July this next year. So here, we're going to spend a few minutes with André and just get some ideas about what he's got in store for us this summer. I know it's going to be awesome. So André, would you please start out by just kind of telling everybody a little bit about your story, how you got involved in music, and where your journey has taken you to this point?
Well, for me, my journey with music began in the church as a little 4-year-old, as I watched these two ladies conduct, Miss Crane and Miss Bethel, and I was infatuated with them. And they had the fancy robes, and I came home and I had a toy piano and I started banging on it. And my mother said, "That sounds like What a Friend." I said, "It is, Mom. You want to hear What a Fellowship?" And I was banging on that, and it made sense to her, and it made it alarmed her because she did not want a musician. She was raising us by herself, and she says, "Well, son, that's fine, but you're not going to be a musician, and I'm not going to get you a piano, so you can play on that toy piano." Well, lo and behold, two people of the church, a truck arrived about 1 month later, and they said, "We have a delivery for Andre Thomas." And my mother said, "Really? He's only, he's just turning 5." And the man said, "Yeah, it's for Andre Thomas." He said, "Can you sign?" He says, "Yes." And then they said, "It's a piano." And so one of the people of the church sent me a piano. And so she was forced to live with me as a musician. She learned to love it, of course. That happened. But I mean, I understand her fear of trying to raise a son by herself as a single parent. Um, and so that began my journey with music, of course, with the church, And then I went to the Wichita Public Schools, and very early, when I was 20 years old, I signed a contract with the Wichita Public Schools and started teaching junior high school. So, and I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that's where I learned to teach. Not so much in my methods classes. I learned to teach. I had some pretty rough students, and I tell you what, they had me for breakfast until I figured out how to teach them. And so to this day, some of the things they taught me about pacing of my rehearsal, they wouldn't have put it in these terms. They would have how to move the rehearsal so they wouldn't do something crazy like, turn over the desk or leave the room, all those kinds of crazy things. But they were my biggest teachers, were my students. And then, of course, later on, I went to college very early. And I mean, before that, I went to college and was Cecil Riney. And then I went to Northwestern and studied piano and composition and studied conducting with a woman by the name of Margaret Hillis. And so I studied with Miss Hillis, and that was wonderful, and that's where I learned to color code. And of course, she had studied with Julius Herford, and so his line analysis, I learned that quite early. And I also learned a very tough lesson from her. She assigned me to conduct the Bruckner Te Deum, and I'm in the conducting class, and I'm starting. And she walked over and she pointed to one note in that piano vocal score I was conducting from, and she said, "What instrument is that?" And I said, "A lucky guess." I said, "Trombone." She said, "Lucky guess. But don't ever walk in here if you're doing a choral orchestral work with a piano vocal score." So I thought, okay, I have learned from Miss Hillis. And then I was teaching, went back to teaching again at another school. And this young man, his name was Danny. Danny came up and said, "Grandpop is coming to the Christmas concert and he wants to talk to you." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Is your grandfather a musician?" He said, "Yeah, he conducts these choirs. They sing hard music. I don't know how good they are, but they sing hard music. Anyway, Grandpop wants to talk to you." Well, after the concert, Grandpop came up and his name was Harold Decker. And Harold said to me, "Listen, I think, have you ever thought about getting a doctorate?" And I said, "No." And then he said, "Can you do what you're doing right now at age 55?" And I said, "No." And he did something very unusual. He flew me to Champaign-Urbana. And I went up, and that was history. 8 months later, uh, I was in the doctoral program. Also, 8 months later, I got married at the same time. So, needless to say, I came back from my honeymoon, and the next day after my honeymoon, we hopped and got to Champaign-Urbana, and I didn't study anything to get ready because you don't study on your honeymoon, but I took lots of courses from the University of Illinois, so I certainly got to learn a lot from it. But I love Harold, and it was from him that I learned how to run a graduate program. And it was also him that took me to my very first ACDA conference. It was the North Central. And he said to me, and he also said to my friend Anton Armstrong, who was there at the same time as a master's student, and we had not met. But he said, "You two are going to go to this conference. You're going to sit right next to me." And I said, "Really?" He says, "Right next to me." And I did. Anton didn't. He stayed for about 15 minutes and he was gone. And I'm sitting there with Mr. Decker. And I will never forget. We heard Nordic, but the choir, the experience that to this day is riveted in my mind. The University of Wisconsin Madison came on the stage, and a man by the name of Robert Fountain came up, and he was all sort of bent over, and he took that podium and he started Bach's Der Geisthilft, and I saw his body transform, but the music literally danced off the stage, and I thought, wow. And that was my introduction to ACDA. And so from that point on, Harold never knew that it was one day his same kid he made go to that conference would be its national president. So that's kind of a quick jaunt of my journey.
Isn't that amazing just how doors open? People come into our lives that we just out of nowhere, it seems, and change our lives completely. So you're coming
Absolutely.
into our life this summer, which we're very excited about. Um, would you please share some of your ideas for what you might include with your interest sessions or some of the music you might be bringing to us?
Well, I've been thinking about that. I probably will at least do one session on a positive approach to rehearsal technique, only because I think we drastically need it because of this. Everything is constantly changing. And we have to figure out how do we, the same things maybe we did before, maybe we need to look at some things a little different, um, and garner some flexibility. I just got off of the manager of the Camerata. I'm here at Yale now, retired today. So there was a luncheon for her again on Zoom, and then I got a note from Jeff Dalma about the conducting student who was supposed to have a rehearsal tomorrow, but we have a nor'easter coming through, and we had another person test positive for COVID, and so then they canceled her dress rehearsal, which was supposed to happen tomorrow, and that has to be shifted until Sunday. So everything is flexibility. Everything is flexibility. And if you let it bother you so much, you'll not want to come out and you don't want to do it. And I'm saying, yes, it is still worth doing, you know. And I remember just this weekend, I was at Wartburg working with their choirs, and then on Sunday, all the choirs, and then on Monday, 600 kids came in from all over Iowa. And Lord help, those children were just incredible, but they were excited. And we sang with our mask on, and they couldn't help themselves. They had their mask on, and then they saw me, and then they hugged my neck. And all of a sudden, I knew again, working with young people is important. And you never know the joy that is there. I remember working with we had a mixed choir and we had a treble choir. And after the treble choir rehearsal, this young lady said, I was having all kinds of emotional problems. She said, my folks were thinking about whether or not I needed to have additional counseling. She said, it's been horrible. And she said, just being in this rehearsal with all these people have really changed me. I feel okay. I haven't felt okay in a long time. And I said, I'm so happy. And that's the power of music. And I think sometimes we think about music as is the end, and it's not the end. And I'll say it 100 times. Music is the tool to reach people. And if you love the people, Okay, and you then the music can work its magic, and it still has magic.
Absolutely. And so I would imagine you're going to have about 5 different times, 5 sessions where you're going to be able to do a combination of presentation and also reading session.
Hmm.
So as you choose your music that you're going to present to us, it will probably be with that in mind that here's this piece of
Oh,
music is a tool to reach this goal.
absolutely. I probably will maybe combine two of the sessions into one big session. I just did with the graduate students here. I guess it was December, because everybody's interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and and for some of them, they know all these composers, but tell me about young African American composers, and I think I'm going to spend 2 hours talking about each one of these guys, and believe it or not, they come from all the regions, and they're in different places, and they're doing very different things. And so I want to do that, and I will probably use some of that. We'll sing some of that in the reading session, but we'll also need to hear some of that, and some of it I'll put on screen. I'll do all kinds of things to make it um, common for you, so you can see these young people and how they are really changing the landscape. And so I think we need to be aware of what they're doing and what they can do, um, and the music that they're writing.
That'll be
And
really
so,
exciting.
yeah, I do need to, I want to do that. And when you see them on the screen, you go, wow. Um, and so for me, looking at them reminds me that I'm going to be 70 soon. These are babies. So, and the ones that I thought were young, the young crew, like the Rollo Dillwers, are back the age that I think I'm supposed to be. So, it's really interesting to see them all, and see their development and their talent and their message music. Some of it gets pretty potent in their message, and not every piece is appropriate for everyone. I'll talk about Zaneta Robles. She wrote a piece about, well, I think Lullaby and Blue. That probably is not going to be a piece that you want to do with your middle school singers.
Mhm. Just so true.
Um, Not because of the technical demands of it, but because of the message itself. It deals more specifically with women's issues. Um, and so, you got to figure out, this is a great piece, but it's a great piece under these circumstances. And what do I build it around so that I have my audience there and they're engaging that piece of music? So, anyway, those are some of the things that I want to touch on, I think, while we were there in Washington, and to celebrate the great traditions that have existed in Washington for a long time.
Mhm. Especially our salmon dinner on Wednesday night. So you're going to have to make
Yeah,
your arrangements so that you're
I
here for
remember that.
sure.
I remember that. Yeah, very much so.
Is there anything you'd like to share just about leadership in ACDA and what that's meant to you or how?
You know, it's amazing what it's been. It has challenged me a lot. Um, and it's opened my ears a lot. There's a lot coming at you, as you know, Karen. Because you've hung in with us even past your presidency. You got all these people yelling in this ear and that ear, and you have to say, I got to be able to listen, and I also have to understand that sometimes young people can be a little loud, and that's okay. But once take a deep swallow and you go, okay, now let's see what they're really saying. And in many cases, you find out, oh, wow, okay. You know,
Mhm.
in some cases, you have to say, I'm sorry. That just doesn't work. You know,
With
um,
a smile.
with a smile. Yeah, absolutely with a smile. Because, you know, ACDA is built on volunteers.
Mhm.
You know, we aren't paid to do this job. You weren't paid to do this job. And it's amazing how many hours it takes. Um, we're doing this revision again, as you know, on the bylaws, and we're doing it a little bit different and getting a whole lot of feedback, um, which has included a lot of people being involved in it. And at first I thought, oh, that's just going to be so cumbersome, but it's well worth the time and energy because you get to hear the voices from all people.
Mhm.
And we're a strange group. We're like the reflection of the United States. That's who we are. We we have the extreme left. We have the extreme right. We have um, we have the Southern Baptists, the Episcopalians, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, who are the easiest to get along with. But anyway, you got all of these factions coming to you at one time, and you have to say, yes, we are a large umbrella. And I hope to goodness we will remain a large umbrella. That person who I may not agree with politically, you know, still can find a place with ACDA.
Mhm.
Okay? We are not a political organization. We have to have space. We do speak often about injustice, whether or not, you know, recently with a statement about the Asian population and what was going on and people being harassed. You think, my goodness, is this America? You know, when I speak with Pearl Shangguan and she's lived in the community for a long time, and all of a sudden, uh, different things are coming out in her community because of simply being Asian. And you go, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
We're about inclusion, not exclusion. And we're also not about othering people. You're special because you're this. No, we're not about othering. We're about inclusion.
Mhm. So true. Well, as everyone can see, this is going to be a fabulous summer institute, and
I
it's
hope
just such a
so.
thrill to welcome you to the Pacific Northwest and to share 2.5 days learning as much as we possibly can from you. So,
I am so looking forward to it. My daughter lives in Seattle. I think we've talked about that
mhm.
before, and we've not seen her since December 2019. Not in person. She had a violent reaction that was life-threatening to the vaccine, and so she's been totally isolated. Um, but that will probably be the first time I actually get to see her. So we've been talking about it, and how we're gonna make it safe for her because that's daddy's girl, and so you desperately miss that. But this pandemic has reached us in personal ways all over the place, but we are resilient.
Mhm. Mhm.
We will find ways. And I think about the regions right now. Oh boy. I thought it was bad when I had to recreate a conference from in person to virtual. And now the region presidents are going ahead, and God bless them. And as they deal with various situations, I got a call from the East. Three choirs from the host city won't be able to participate. And you go, really? Um, those are all the things that region presidents have to do when they're planning a conference. Now, put on top of that the CDC requirements, state requirements, city requirements, and hotel requirements. If you have a mayor that comes in, like for the Midwest, that says everybody will be vaccinated coming into this situation, no exception. Okay, then you got to, as a region president, you got to repivot, because we had general guidelines. You got to repivot because your city of Chicago says this must happen. So we're learning flexibility, and you know, but I was telling somebody just the other day, I had a student miss rehearsal, and normally I contact those students. Why weren't you in rehearsal? Not now. I contact them and say, "Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different world. Right now, you just want them to be all right and not sick.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, Andre, thank you so much for your time. I've certainly enjoyed our conversation. And again, I can't wait till you are here this summer in person and we get to spend time with you. So
Well,
thank
I
you
am
and all the
so
best to you.
and it'll be great to spend a little time with you too, Karen.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.